Hi, I'm Vegard. I'm going to be showing you how to backport some Linux kernel patches, and I want to show you how I like to do conflict resolution. This video is actually a companion to a blog post that I wrote, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Okay, so for the first patch, let me show it here on the left. This is a KVM patch, and it says there is a null pointer dereference when a guest VM executes this instruction. And I'm not going to go through the whole changelog here, but the patch is pretty simple. So we know it was a null pointer dereference, and we can kind of see from the patch here that it's adding this guard, this null pointer check before. So this line here is just the same as what was here, and it's just adding this this null pointer check here and the same thing here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to be cherry picking this onto 5.17.9. So let's check that out first. And we cherry pick it. Okay, so there's a conflict here. We can run git diff to start with, and this is you'll see this is a combined diff, or a three-way diff. So this first part here is what we have in our current branch, and then this is what was in the patch as context. So this is what it expected to find in place of this one. And then this part, the last part here, is what the patch wants to add instead of this. So I have my conflict style set to diff3. That's why it has these 3 parts here instead of the usual 2. And I really prefer having all 3 here, because it helps me see what the difference is between what's in my branch and what the patch was expecting there to be here. But yeah, I find this combined diff a little bit difficult to read, so I prefer to do git diff head. So this will show me the diff between my current my branch and my current working directory. So it's easy to see that, you know, git cherry pick added all of these lines, and here there was no conflict. So let's go ahead and well, actually, before we edit the patch, let's try to figure out what the source of the conflict is. So what we can see already here is that for some reason this line is not the same as this one, and it's a little bit subtle. You might not notice right away, but the difference between them is that this one here in our current branch has an underscore here, whereas what's in the patch, you can also see it here, what was in the patch was with a dot. So there's a dot here, and what we have is an underscore. So I think that the way to resolve this conflict would be to just keep you know, these 2 lines from the patch, but changing this here to be an underscore. But we can verify this by looking at the history of this file, and in particular this function. So actually, let's just do this. So we can use this special git log command, and we'll look at all the differences between the current branch and the parent of the patch that we're cherry picking. This will tell us all the changes that happened to this function, and hopefully one of these commits will explain why there is this discrepancy here. So the first commit that comes up is this also KVM patch, obviously. And because I gave a specific file name to git log, this is actually not the full diff for this patch or for this commit. But if I do git show on this commit, it will also show me other files that are changed as part of this patch. And we can see basically here, it's replacing these two members by a single new member. And so we can see here this patch is just changing all of the underscores into dots because these two members moved into this one new member. And also from the changelog we can see it says this patch is entirely search and replace. So that tells me that it's this is just a kind of a mechanical change. There's no semantic change that we have to look out for. I mean, we can look at the rest of the patch, but we see that it's purely a syntactic change, which is good news. But it's important to have a look just to be sure, just to make sure that there's no other subtle semantic changes that might mean that we have to do other things in our conflict resolution. But we can go ahead and edit the file. As I said, we want to basically keep these two lines here, just changing this dot into an underscore, and we can get rid of all the context here, and that should be it. So we can have a look now at what the change is in our working directory, and we can see here like there's a one-to-one correspondence between the original patch and our changed patch, except here it has the dot, here it has the underscore, here it has the dot, here it has the underscore. And again, this second part is the same between the two. So we can add this and commit. And we can, instead of just doing this visual inspection, which is kind of manual, maybe error prone, we can use a tool called color diff. So we do something like this, and let's put the original commit on the left side again, and then we're gonna also we're gonna have our commit, the new one, on the right hand side. And I'm using git show with -w, so this will show the full function. Any function that's getting changed will show the full function in the diff. And let's also put this through less. So here again it shows that the two commits side by side, except now it's highlighting and showing all the changes as a diff. So obviously my two lines here these two lines got added to the changelog. And then we can also see here, for example, this line here and this one, it's highlighted in kind of turquoise, and there is this pipe symbol here to tell us, you know, these two lines are different between the two commits. And then we have the main part of the patch. Again, this is highlighted because of our change, because of changing the dot into an underscore. Same thing here. And then there's no highlight here because this part was fine. But then as part of the rest of the function, there is another line that's changed in just in the context. So neither the original patch nor our commit changed this line, but it's different. So it might be a good idea to try to have a look at those other changes just in case. And here we can tell, actually this is also a bit subtle, but this one here, it's static call kvm x86 flush tlb gva. Here it's tlb flush gva, so it's just reordering this. Probably it was a name change, and it shouldn't be relevant to the patch that we're backporting, so that's fine. But it's good to double check, especially if you have like go-tos and error handling paths. Those could be significantly different, and it's just a good idea to double check those. But we don't have those here, so it doesn't really apply in this case. And we should also do a sanity check, just building this file. And we can run make just on this file to make sure there's no build errors or warnings or anything like that. All right, that looks good. So normally you would also do a full kernel build and testing that, hopefully also exercising this code in some way, but I'm not going to show that here. But I think this is good for this patch. All right, let's look at the second patch. So this is a bug in the exec system call. This was a CVE in Polkit, which is a user space program. Well, pkexec is the user space program, and the problem was if you called it with no arguments, not even the program file in argv0, then some bad things would happen, and it would read arguments from the environment table instead. And the kernel fix here is basically to, if you call execve without any arguments at all, then it will add an empty string as the first argument, just as a kind of safeguard against this kind of problem in the future. Yeah, the first change here is to make sure there's enough that it counts at least one argument here when calculating the amount of space that it needs. And then here it's adding a warning. So if it counts, if it gets 0, then it prints out this warning. Here there's another check. If it's 0, then yeah, so this does the actual replacement, adding in the empty string as an argument. And then here there's another warning as well. So let's try, I'm gonna cherry pick this onto 5.4.196. All right, so conflict. Yeah, I'm gonna run git diff again just to see, you know, this is again the three-way diff. So this is a lot of stuff that's outside the conflict markers. One thing to note here maybe is the fact that here it's changing around some labels for error handling, and that could be interesting to remember later. Here's another conflict. Yeah, okay, so this conflict corresponds to this part of the patch. Let's just look at the previous one as well. This is, it's expecting, yeah, so this is the warning here. And okay, so let's go down. And then the last change here looks like it's a conflict here as well. But let's look at the diff against the head. So I ran git diff head. So this was applied successfully. There's this conflict here where for some reason this count call is not in our current branch. That's something to look at. And then here it seems it's adding this, it's doing this before the bprm exec call, which is here in the context of the patch, but it doesn't seem to exist in our current branch. So that's we have to figure out why that is not there. And then the last conflict, it's expecting to find a call to count strings kernel that also doesn't exist in our current branch. So let's just look at the file. I'll go to the first conflict first, and let's also make sure we can see this part on the left. So let's see. It's trying to find this count call here. So let's just not grab, but let's search for count. So the function exists, and it seems it's called from here, prepare arg pages. Oops. Here, actually, let's do this. Not interesting. Okay, so it seems that the count call moved from here into this prepare arg pages, and we should probably have a look at the log here for this file. Maybe we can grep for count. So let's try. So let's look at all the changes between our current branch and the parent of the commit that we're cherry picking. Let's see if this gives us anything interesting. Reimplement our limit proc. Yeah, here this looks interesting. So this says factor bprm stack limits out of prepare arg pages, and we see here, yeah, here they're getting removed from prepare arg pages, and they're getting added here to do exec ve add common, which which is the place where here where we're expecting to find the count call. So let's see. It looks like this is just factoring it out. So I don't think we need to really do anything special here. We can probably just we can move. So let's take the new code here, basically just this warning, and we'll take that from the patch and add it in here where it gets called. So yeah, let's just look at this. It does the count call, and then okay, so here it says retval, and this probably needs to say bprm argc instead. And I guess we have a choice here whether we put it before or after this. Here it looks like, you know, first it checks for 0 and then it checks for less than 0, so we should probably do the same. Although the cases are completely separate, so it doesn't really matter. We can do it the same as the original patch. And then let's go back to the conflict. Yeah, then I think we can just keep the original code here as it was. Let's just have a look at the diff so far. So we added this this warning here instead of, so we added it to prepare arg pages where the count call is instead of do execve at common. And yeah, then there were no further changes in the place where it used to get called. And then we have the next conflict here. Let's see. Yeah, it's this. So let's get the whole thing on the screen. It's doing this copy string kernel, so it's this change here, here, and it's adding this check before bprm execve. Let's just search for that. So that bprm execve doesn't exist here in the current branch at all. So these are the only two occurrences and in this file, and they come from the patch that we're cherry picking. So we could do git log again, just as a sanity check. Wait, what were we looking for? bprm execve. Okay, so here it's adding a new function, it seems, kernel execve, and there's a bprm execve call here. But this is, yeah, this is not, I think this is not what we're looking for. Here, bprm execve, this is a refactoring, yeah, this is another refactoring thing. And it's adding this new function. So to me it looks like just another refactoring thing, but let's actually have a look at this original patch again with a bit more context. That often helps. So I used -W to basically show to make the diff include everything in the function that's getting changed. So let's look here. It's doing copy strings, environment and arguments, then the change here, and then bprm execve. So I think it looks like, I mean, we have copy strings here and here for the environment and the arguments. So it looks like we should maybe yeah, it looks like this part should go here, like between copy strings and exec bin prm. So I'm gonna just move that up. This part, like this, and then I'm gonna leave the code from the current branch as it was. That's this part, and then we can delete like the rest of the context from the patch. And yeah, that looks correct to me. We can look again at git diff or git diff head. So yeah, so let's put -W here too. So here it's doing this copy strings kernel, copy strings, and these correspond here like this, and then we have our new code here. And this part has changed, but I think that was part of the refactoring change. So there was still one conflict left. Let's look at that as well. Yeah, it's this warning that's getting added after count strings kernel. So here it's expecting count strings kernel, and it doesn't exist in our current branch. And I think I saw in the last git log that we did, let's just count strings kernel. Let's just look again. Yeah, so this function is getting added after like it's getting added between our current branch and the patch that we're cherry picking, so it doesn't exist in our current branch. And yeah, so this is let's look here. This is getting added to kernel execve, and it looks like that's a new function here. So I think kernel execve doesn't even exist in our branch, and this is actually a different function. This is do execve file. So I'm thinking it should be safe to just keep the part that's in our current branch, and we can just remove this warning altogether. Like it's just not there anymore. Or rather, the code isn't there yet. So let's save that. Let's look at the diff again. The warning here at the top. Yeah, this part that got applied correctly. And then we have the new bit that adds in the empty string as an argument. So that looks good to me. Maybe we should try to build this. All right, so it looks like we have an error. Line 1867. And yeah, it's just called the copy string kernel. And it doesn't find the function copy string kernel. So let's just search again for copy string. Oh, it was copy string kernel. So now I'm looking at patches that changed copy string kernel. Okay, so here there's a patch that renames copy strings kernel to copy string kernel. So yeah, here it says copy strings kernel is always used with a single argument. Adjust the calling conventions. So we can just do the reverse, like we adjust so the convention that's being used in the patch is copy string kernel like this, and we just have to make sure it's doing this copy strings kernel instead. So I'm gonna look for copy strings kernel. Sorry, copy string kernel. No. Copy strings kernel. Okay, there we go. Right, so this is called, here it says like copy strings but get argv and its values from kernel memory. So since we have the empty string here in kernel memory, that's why we're doing copy string or copy strings kernel instead of just copy strings. But let's change this to copy strings kernel. Let me just make a copy here so we can compare them more easily. Copy strings kernel, argc is 1, and it wants an argv array here. So I'm just gonna make an argv array here. I'm not sure if it needs the null, but we might as well do it. I don't see the harm in it anyway. And then argv. So I'm looking here at these arguments, right, and trying to put them in here. And then bprm is just the same. So let's see if this builds. Alright, that looks fine. So I'm gonna take this away now. And let's commit this. And now let's have a look at color diff again, just as a sanity check. So again, we have the original commit on the left, and then our the commit we just created on the right. Let's pipe it to less. Yeah, so this is just a changelog, and then not unexpectedly we have our warning that we moved up. Here are some changes just to the context. It doesn't look relevant for us, This is also just context changes that don't look relevant. Yeah, and then there was the count call that we moved in the patch. And this is again a change in the context. So here it was copy string kernel, here is copy strings kernel. So that's kind of what we did. Here is the label changes again that I mentioned before. So that could be interesting to keep in mind. Here's the change that we just made with copy string kernel turning into copy strings kernel. And yeah, here it didn't actually, so this is interesting because here it didn't highlight our this line because it's the same, and it shouldn't be. I think this should be the same as here. Go to out free, go to out. Here also go to out. So it has go to out both after and before. So this should probably also be go to out. I'm not sure there even is an out label here. Yeah, there is. So I guess let's just quickly look at just a regular diff for this. So here is go to out free, and that should be go to out. So if we're jumping to out free instead of out, we're skipping all of this potentially. And looks like this would skip like a reference put on the which is probably like a resource leak. This, I'm not sure how critical skipping this would be, but anyway, it's not something that we should be doing. Yeah, so that's definitely one thing that we still have to change. And then yeah, then there's the warning here that we don't have anymore because we don't have this function at all. Alright, so let's change this. This is not correct. This is correct. And we can just amend it. So now, if we do just a color diff again, we can see here it's doing the correct thing. Let's just try to build this again one last time, just to make sure. All right, perfect. So, yeah, I think that's it. We have well, we should still, as always, we should be we should be doing a full kernel build and like runtime testing this, probably with a test case that actually does an exec call with 0 argc, just to make sure it's doing the right thing and printing the warning and that we didn't mess something up with like the calling conventions here, or copying the string from the wrong place or whatever. But yeah, this I think this is done.